Hey, welcome back to Spotlight Southern California with Andy Quinones of the Southern California Service Corps. And today we have in studio a special guest, Michael Witmer. Hi, Michael.
Greetings, Andrew. How you doing?
I'm great, thank you. It's so nice to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me over.
All right. So, today we're here to talk about something very interesting, something I think that has been calling my heart. And I'm so glad that you're here to share with us this opportunity. But before we get into the opportunity, can you share with a little bit with our community who you are and why you're here?
All right. Well, you've got my name. It's Michael Witmer. I've lived in the Pomona area since 2000, so I guess 25 years. I've lived in Southern California for more than 50 years. And I have been about counteracting fragmentation. I first came out here in 1970. I moved to South Central Los Angeles. That was right at the height of the Vietnam War. Shortly after Dr. Martin Luther King got assassinated, I was very disappointed with the state of affairs in the country and very cynical about the possibilities of effectuating change, except perhaps at the local level. So I came to live in the South Central Los Angeles community. And I did that work for 7 years there. Then I went, sort of got grounded and went back to college, became a lawyer, and worked in the law for about 30 years.
30 years?
30 years. Along the way, I got married to an Episcopal priest, and that really grounded me in ministry as a way to live in the world. And so we got together in 1992. He died in 2017, and I've been on my own for the last 8-9 years. Let's see here. Now, I came today because I'm working with a group called the Circle of Chairs, and we're counteracting fragmentation through one-on-one or small group conversations. And we've now been at it for about 2017, so that's 8 years, and we're coming up on our 29th conversation. They have mostly been about race, interracial dialogues about race, and we basically have supported conversations between disparate peoples about touchy subjects, and we've gotten a lot of practice at facilitating that kind of a conversation. And we are now looking to widen the discussion a bit beyond race to the fragmentation that we're seeing in our society. And so we're hoping that we can help close some gaps, build some bridges, and help people understand their neighbors who they disagree with. And not just understand, but begin to establish connections to communicate and have productive discussions.
Yeah.
And that's really been what's missing is that we can talk past each other, but we're going to work together. We've got to really connect. And that begins with respect. Yeah. And so Circle of Chairs is about building respect, building a foundation on which people can then have productive, healthy conversation.
Okay. Now, Michael, there's a few interesting words that have passed your lips, and I want to kind of get into them just a little bit. Now, one, I'm going to start off with the word respect. Now, I think respect is an interesting word in the sense where the culture that I grew up in, respect meant something else than what I would define it as now. Now, over the years, again, the Latino kind of culture, respect was something that a man wanted to have and would do anything to get it. If it's violence or if it's at one extreme, but men want respect. I want to be heard. I want to be listened to. I want to be honored and the things of that nature. Now, I like etymology. And so we're breaking down the word respect. You got like rewind or redo. So it's to go back again, and spect. And that would come from the word spectacle or specter, to look at. So the word respect, as an older guy that's learned some things, to look at again. That's what it means. To take a second look. and sometimes we come at people with an agenda or a singular point of view, but to really respect someone, I have to take a second look at them, So that is kind of, and with you and I, we've known each other for a few years now. You and I are both people that have a heart of service and have made a life of service. And I respect you.
Mm-hmm.
And as I learn about you, I see you in different ways now. So I respect you in different ways because I've been able to see different perspectives of who Michael Witmer is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other word that you had mentioned is a big word, and I don't think maybe everyone would want to understand it. Let's see if I remember it. The conflict between peoples. Disfragmented.
Counteracting fragmentation.
Counteracting fragmentation. Like that's heavy duty. Counteracting fragmentation. I think I know what it means.
Yeah.
So to translate it to maybe my high school buddy that may be watching out there,
Okay.
is that all over within our communities, families, our nation, there are people that disagree with each other, and so families or friends sometimes become fragmented, right? So to counteract fragmentation is we're trying to bring harmony back into relationships. Is that kind of what that means, or
That's certainly part of it. You could think of it as mending what is broken.
mending what is broken?
But not all things fragment because they're broken.
Yeah.
Some things fragment by design. And there's a lot of forces that work in our society that try and drive us apart.
Right.
And sometimes those are called conflict entrepreneurs.
Conflict entrepreneurs. That's another big one.
These are people whose livelihood depends upon creating division.
Yeah, like the nightly news, perhaps, or the corporate media division sells, right? Sells.
Politicians,
Right.
As a lawyer,
Yes.
I worked as a lawyer for 35 years, and I lived on conflict.
Yeah.
I made money on conflict. I tried to do it in a way that reduced conflict. I was drawn to conflict not because I created it, but because it was making situations untenable.
Yes.
And I'm still drawn to conflict, but not because I can take advantage of it, but because I know how to heal it. I understand the dynamics of it.
Yes.
So counteracting fragmentation is about recognizing when people have been driven apart, either by miscommunication or by design.
Yeah.
We are now in the midst of a society that drives us apart.
Right.
Where certain elements drive us apart. So counteracting that means recognizing who and what those elements are, how they work, and then trying to make a human connection despite that.
Yeah.
And I really love what you did with the word respect. And I was thinking, that's kind of like reflect. You take a second look at a person, you get past the surface,
Yes.
past their persona, perhaps past the thing that you lay on them as an identity, to see who they really are.
Yes.
And yeah, I like that because it does take a second look and perhaps a third look. And understanding not just the facade that they're putting out, but the story, the human being that's inside that facade.
Yes.
And one of the things that the Circle of Chairs likes to say is that the shortest distance between two people is a story.
Wonderful.
Is your story and my story. Because that helps break down the facade, get to the reality of this person's lived experience.
Yes.
And this is what counteracting fragmentation requires.
Yeah.
Because unless we recognize the humanity in each other and replace the masks with a real human face that we can see and understand and read, we can't start to mend that which has been broken and the divisions that have been sown between us.
Yes.
And so this takes a little time. And in our community conversations, if you want me to, I can get into that. We actually build a framework to how to provide guidelines. I think of it as a scaffolding.
Okay.
For relationships that are still teetering.
Yes.
So you provide a scaffolding of facilitation and guidelines that will keep things stable while people navigate what might be some ticklish terrain. And so, yeah, I'll get into that as you like. So that's counteracting fragmentation is about mending what is broken, healing what is torn, sewing up, but also helping things that have grown apart to grow back together.
Yes.
Or perhaps find new ways to grow together in a community of communities.
Yes.
And that's the theme I'd like to come back to in a little bit. I'll let you
wonderful
charge here.
Well, again, we're here at the table because something's happening within our world, and it's definitely trickling down to our community. As you know, again, being in 2025, politics have gotten nasty. The left and the right have both been at each other's throats in a way, and it's creating great division among families now. The left and the right are definitely not seen eye to eye, and again, it is affecting our nation. And I think about the quote, the nation divided.
Yes, cannot stand. A house divided cannot stand.
A house divided cannot stand. United we stand, divided we fall. And there's another a dozen, I'm sure, quotes that would reflect that sentiment. That as long as we're divided, we will not be able to stand. We'll not be able to grow. We'll not be able to thrive. And so, I was sharing with you not too long ago that for most of my, I want to say adult life, I have leaned a little bit to the left and liberalism and the democratic viewpoint. But as I've grown, again, I'll be, I think, 47 this year. As I've grown, I've grown to be a little more conservative. And I never would have thought I would have thought the way I did now. I'm turning into my dad in a sense. And now, no, my dad's even more liberal than I am now. But again, I find it very interesting that my mind has changed. And I love to talk to people. I love to debate. I love to have conversations. But again, if you don't have that scaffolding, like you said, if you don't have something that can sometimes help guide conversations, they can get nasty. And you can make enemies within family, enemies within community. And again, where we came to play, you asked me to join the circle of chairs because I have a different perspective, perhaps on immigration and some of the things that are happening with our country today. But like you, I feel with all my heart and soul that we can't improve, we can't get better, we can't improve our society if we don't talk to each other, first of all. And through stories and dialogue, there's a way to magically kind of heal, because then we're able to see each other from different perspectives. And you're offering with Circle of Chairs, the 29th Circle of Chairs, a safe space where people that may have different opinions can talk about those opinions in a way that is not ugly, I guess. If that makes sense.
Well, it's respectful.
Yeah, definitely
respectful is really the key word. Would you like me to go a bit deeper into the process that we work with?
And again, this is a circle of chairs right here. I participate in at least one, maybe two, a circle of chairs.
Yeah.
And so I love the model.
Yeah. We ask people to speak from the truth of their own experience. Okay. And so we discourage folks from bringing in talking points or memes or opinions, because what we want to do is get past that to establish a baseline of respect and mutuality. I like to think that once we start thinking about one another's values and which values are at the fore when we form our political perspective, people begin to recognize, all right, I respect that value, and I have the reason I get to mine my position is because of maybe a different value, but I hold the value that this other person is bringing to. And so I recognize that there's a back and forth, a tension between these prioritizing different values.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I would say that I have gotten more conservative in a lot of ways. I definitely get a little uncomfortable with the way a lot of liberal positions are sometimes articulated, and a lot of the way they're pushed, and the extreme to which they're pushed, and mostly with the impatience that they are often stated vis-a-vis other perspectives. And so there's one big value divide in the country is between individuality and communitarianism, right? And some people will get to a place on trade, for example, or capitalism based on individuality. And other people will get to a different place on trade policy and any number of issues based on a feeling of communitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
But we need both in order to really hold up the tent that our society consists of.
Mm.
And so we can find these kind of value pairs. They're contrasts, but they're both essential. And we cannot insist on our own way when that other value is calling for attention, because it will direct us to places where the fabric of our society is being torn. So immigration might be,
yes.
Compassion is a value system,
yes.
But the fact that we have boundaries and we are a nation of laws,
right,
that has to be kept in perspective too.
Right.
And so borders mean something. They have to mean something.
Right.
And if we don't honor that, then we start to lose track of the rule of law.
Yeah.
And so compassion has to be held in tension with the rule of law.
Yes.
So even, one position might be called conservative and the other liberal. There are values that bridge these divides,
right,
that both sides can connect with. And so then we can start having a talk about how do we balance these legitimate concerns?
Yes.
How do we balance concern with protection for the border? Compassion for the people who are already here. Why did they come? Are they here for economic gain, or are they here because of political persecution? That's relevant.
Yes.
So the more you delve into the nuances, the more difficult it becomes to come up with a easily framed, quickly conveyed soundbite or bumper sticker,
mm-hmm.
which tend to end conversations. And the more it becomes possible to have an in-depth conversation where you can formulate wise policies that have the flexibility to adapt and accommodate two different values that are in tension.
Mm-hmm.
I find this is mostly possible at the local level. More so, and the further you get away from the localities and neighborhoods and towns into the states and the nation, the more conflict entrepreneurs come into play, and the political process creates division, and it becomes much more difficult to form that kind of cohesive conversation where problem solving is.
Yeah. A heavy duty.
Yeah, but I just want to go back to that idea that conservative and liberal, those are somewhat helpful shorthand.
Yeah.
But they disguise a whole lot of other things that need to be thought of when you're using that shorthand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree.
And you have a lot of very liberal positions on some issues. So
absolutely.
You can't, conservatism creeps in, but think about where that's creeping from.
Right.
And
well, I mean,
the values conversation.
And I say that because, again, now I'm a husband. I'm a father of two young people. I'm more economically involved in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Things affect me more as an adult. It was real easy to be liberal when I was in my 20s and march and do all the things that I did in my early age.
Mm-hmm.
But, you get older, you get a little bit, you see things differently.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still very liberal, but I just have a lot of questions about, I guess, why we are the where we are in our society today.
Yeah.
You know, and how do we heal? How do we grow? How do we
shape our children?
Yeah, how do we shape our children? You know, and there's, I don't want to say there's fear, but there's more concerned, in particular because I do have my two small children. What kind of values do I want to instill in them as they navigate life and in the world? You know, and things have changed tremendously since you and I have been little. You know, I tell you, I mean, like the pendulum swing is what I imagine. There's what was wrong when I was growing up is right now in many ways. And it's trying to get used to that. In our culture is I guess it's, we have to grow into it. It can't just happen overnight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And right and wrong may not be the best way to characterize accepted or not accepted.
Yeah.
May describe certain things. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in...
Okay, Michael, so welcome back to Spotlight SoCal. We're in the Pomona Valley, and we're talking about the circle of chairs and the effect that it's going to have within our community and why we need it.
Yeah, you were talking about how morals seem to have changed.
Oh, yes.
In the years that you, from when you were growing. And I'm not so sure that the underlying moral values have changed as much as the way people understand them.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different cultural influences have been coming into the country that we need to take some time and mine for their value, what they have to teach us, particularly in the Middle East and the Far East. And I think those tend oftentimes to be more conservative culturally.
Right.
You know, but that may have some influence on the way you're taking issues in now.
Well, you know, I read somewhere many years ago, the West, we honor heroes like John Wayne or Superman, you know, the Lone Ranger. It was the individual, because when people came out West, like anything, you go back, you know, thousands of years into the development of human beings, like a spearhead, the toughest men or man would go out there first to make sure that there wasn't danger, and the community would follow, right? So as America also, again, the toughest men went first, like the spearhead, and the community follows. So we're very much of a nation of that Lone Ranger, the individual, the Superman, the one, you know, manifest destiny kind of stuff. When we left the world where you need a community to survive, you know, and it was all about, you know, again, I think about, again, Asian culture and the need for honor within the family, you know, and again, America is a big melting pot. So eventually, like things are like a big gumbo. They're getting mixed in with each other. But again, it is interesting that, again, at the younger person, Andy, I was the Lone Ranger, the Superman going out.
Yeah.
But now, you know, community and the family and the shelter, the protection, that's a little bit more, is a little more important to me than being alone and going out to the world.
Yeah, that's a, I won't say a well-worn metaphor, because there's a lot of truth in that, that way of seeing our history. There's the pioneers and there's the settlers.
Yes.
And I read about somebody who characterized churches in that way. You got pioneers who, like you say, are out there and rugged individuals, breaking into new territory and not necessarily honoring the claims of the people who are already there.
Yeah.
And then you got the settlers who come in behind them and build the banks and the hotels and the schools and raise the kids. I think a lot of that got woven into our culture, that pioneering spirit. And some of it, you can see it in the way people, there's a certain swagger that John Wayne, demanding respect and commanding it, I see it a lot.
Not the type of respect we talk about to look at again, but the macho kind of respect, right?
Yeah. And I'm seeing it being displayed on the international stage now.
Yes.
The trouble is that was appropriate for a time when there was a whole lot of territory that was unclaimed. When there was that kind of pioneering going on.
Yes.
That now, for the most part, this continent is settled.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about there are new frontiers, but they're not in land acquisition.
Yeah.
There are new frontiers in social cohesion, in education, in culture, in art.
Yeah.
New frontiers to explore in media like we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people who are still thinking, oh yeah, we get respect when we take other people's land.
Right.
Oh my God, that's last century.
But it makes me really think that now I like history, and I think I have a fair understanding of how the world has unfolded according to the history that we've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing ever stays the change. No borders are ever permanent. Everything changes, language. I mean, everything develops and changes. So to think that no new borders will ever be created, no territory will ever change, like the Gulf of Mexico to America. To me, it sounds ignorant to believe that things are permanent and they won't change, because we look at history and it's only been the unfolding of mankind flowing through every corner of. So it doesn't bother me that it's the Gulf of America now, or he wants to call Canada, because I know in my soul that things are always changing and they cannot stay the same, even though people may not like it. It just seems to be a fact of life. If that makes sense.
I think I understand. There's a thing about boundaries. We need to tear down walls of hostility. And when neighbors put up fortified walls between them, that increases tension and it damages community. It's fragmented.
Right.
And we've evolved in our society now to the point where we don't want to exclude people. So those kinds of barriers have fallen, but we need to have boundaries so that we can agree on what behaviors. We may accept all people, but not all behaviors.
Yeah.
So the conversation, the boundaries are fluid, but the conversation is not so much about who gets included. It's about what gets included, or what sorts of behaviors can we tolerate. And those boundaries can be negotiated.
Yes.
So where the boundary is between you and me on our property, well, we can refer to a survey that was done, and if there's a tree on your side that's growing fruit and dropping limbs on my side, then we can talk about how do we adjust the boundary or adjust the things that transcend the boundaries.
Yeah.
So I do believe in evolution, and I believe that as a species we're evolving, and that kind of comes back to that thing about pioneers and settlers.
Yeah.
Up till World War II, people and nations felt free to appropriate the property of their neighbors, and we had wars over that. We had wars for thousands of years about that.
Right.
And after World War II, we sort of reached an agreement that national boundaries are now sovereign, and they're going to be respected by nations that are within the pale.
Yeah.
The pale being within polite society of nations.
Right.
And so that was, I think, an evolutionary step.
Right.
Where if boundaries need to change, they do it with the agreement of both parties, not by invasion and violence.
Right.
And that's what the Ukraine war has been about, trying to stop that sort of violent, aggressive appropriation of land.
See, now my understanding was that the Ukraine war started because they were trying to move NATO closer to Russia when there had been a long-standing agreement that NATO would not become closer. You cannot put military bases and weapons of mass destruction closer to this Russian border. And see, again, two different perspectives. If NATO would have respected that agreement and no military movement would be closer to this Russian sovereign border, I wonder if the Ukraine war would have ever happened.
I think that's a fair question. And I think in the context of boundaries, it's a helpful question because it makes us think about boundaries in different ways.
Right.
That it's not just a line; it's a sphere of influence. It's a line plus a buffer that people can feel comfortable living within.
Right.
Just as the United States has declared this thing called the Monroe Doctrine and has, in a sense, established its sphere of influence within the entire Northern Hemisphere.
Yes.
Or Western Hemisphere.
Right.
Not a boundary so much as a sphere of influence that we defend. And we got pretty on the nose when Russia tried to put missiles in Cuba.
Yes.
Back in the 60s.
Right.
I was
right.
So, yeah. I think the most important takeaway from the current frictions we're experiencing in NATO is that we have to keep talking. And we have to honor one another's legitimate concerns. And things have to stay agreed once they're reduced to writing.
Right.
At least once they're reduced to writing.
Right.
And I've heard a lot about those discussions about NATO not expanding.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm not sure this is necessarily a conservative and liberal concern.
Yeah.
I have long been... I have not been a big fan of American imperialism.
Right.
And the whole idea of an American empire is troubling to me.
I agree.
And NATO is one facet of the American empire.
Uh-huh.
And so it's complex. It is complex. But I think at the end of the day, our shelter, our safety is going to rely on the rule of law and not violence. We have to try and find a way to continue to respect one another's boundaries.
Yes.
And bear in mind that those don't necessarily represent lines on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we can build civilization and a trading system that keeps us so reliant on one another for our own economic well-being,
right,
that we have to be respectful of one another's needs.
Now, I want to add a little bit to that because there's something that concerns me, again, as I grow a little more conservative in the sense where not only respecting people's boundaries and needs, but their culture and the way that they choose to live their life within the culture. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about the Amish, right? Or or I don't know, some Islamic tribe somewhere. American imperialism has also joined at the hip is American culture, that we want to seemingly go into other places in the world and say this capitalist system is the best for you, and our ethics, as in whether it be sexuality or whatever it may be. There are plenty of countries, I think, that want to stay culturally empowered. I wouldn't know the word, but it's intact. That's it. It's culturally intact.
Yeah.
But again, not only maps, and the boundaries, and there's always a line in the sand. There's also some invisible thing going on, the changing of cultures.
Yes.
In this day and age.
Yeah.
Now getting back. Ladies and gentlemen, again, you got Andy and Michael here, and we are having a wonderful conversation, and we want to invite you to have a wonderful conversation. Next week, that is the 29th Circle of Chairs. It's going to be on April 12th, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the Napier Room Napier Common Room at
Pilgrim Place.
At Pilgrim Place. So, tell us a little bit about Pilgrim Place for those who don't know.
Place is the community I live in. It's a senior community in Claremont, right near the boundary between Claremont and Pomona. And it's easy to find. And the common room is right near Harrison Avenue on the southern boundary of Pilgrim Place. Pilgrim Place itself is about 100 years old, a little over 100 years. It's a conscientious community. It's an intentional community.
Intentional community.
Yeah. And so we get involved, and the Circle of Chairs was founded by a couple of pilgrims who reached out to the NAACP and the National Negro Council of Negro Women. And so it's become we got at least half a dozen different organizations now sponsoring this and adding to the quilt.
Yes.
That we've become. And so, yeah, we're going to be having conversations about how to build trust and fellowship across boundaries of difference.
Yes.
And so I doubt we'll get into much of the political kind of discussion that you and I have been having. And if we do, I would love to see it be more about, like, how do we deal with homelessness?
Yeah.
How do we deal with our undocumented neighbors?
Right.
And how do we deal with the new intrusion of immigration, things like that? I don't think those are on the agenda for this conversation. But what I'm hoping will come out of this discussion is an appreciation of the power of communicating across boundaries of difference and how relaxing, how refreshing it is to have a conversation with somebody that you know you disagree with, but you still respect and you're curious about why they think the way they do.
Right.
If we start experiencing this kind of conversation, it becomes something we hunger for.
Yes.
And I think society is missing it now. And so I'm hoping this will be a felt need for enough folks to come and participate. And don't just come. Bring an adversary.
Yeah.
Bring along somebody that you wish you could talk to, but you haven't been able to about something. And see if you can't find, in this supported, facilitated context, a way to talk.
Right.
And open up some doors and some lines of communication.
You know, Michael, I'm going to participate in this event, and I invited some family and friends.
Good. Recruit.
Yes, we got to recruit. But what I'm hoping is that once this finishes, that you and I could come back together and report out.
Okay.
And perhaps maybe even give our community a model to follow, so that they can have discussions within their own family and within their own community.
Absolutely.
Maybe, and hopefully, if you guys leave a comment. If you guys would like, maybe we could consider filming something like this, so that the outside world can see what a circle of chairs can really be like. Of course, there's a lot of the word that I'm looking for. We respect each other's values and privacy and things of that nature.
Okay, that's actually one reason we can't record.
Yeah,
because
right.
There's an agreement that nothing that's said within the circle. We break into small groups.
Yes,
5 or 6 people, and we agree to keep what's said in that circle within the circle.
Right.
Just so that people will feel free to speak and not feel like they're going to get ambushed.
That's
expressing a view.
Right.
And so there may be parts of it that we can record, like the plenary sessions.
Yeah.
But what's said in the small groups is going to stay. That'll stay private and protected.
Absolutely. And what we hope, at least, is that all across America and perhaps even the world, that people that have different viewpoints can find a place in their community where they can share their values and have a healthy conversation.
Yeah.
So that we can find harmony and really move forward as a society, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical. And I mean, there's so many areas even in our local, among our schools, our children.
Yes.
Is one area where this kind of conversation and the ability to have it is crucial.
Right.
Is crucial. What we teach our kids and how we help them develop their own ways of maintaining boundaries and respect.
Right.
That's what's going to save our civilization.
That's right.
I really appreciate you bringing me in today.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. I'm really glad to have you. And again, this is Andy Quinones and Michael Witmer. And join us next week for the 29th Circle of Chairs, building community. Where do we go from here?
Yes.
And again, at the Pilgrim's Place, and I'll put information connected somewhere on the graphics. But we hope to see you there. If you live close and you'd like to join this community, we'd love to have you. Again, thanks again, Michael.
Thank you very much.